Good morning to you all, in your homes, on Zoom, or on YouTube. My name is Norm Herofker, and I'm proud to say that I'm the minister of this congregation, the Universalist Unitarian Church of Halifax, established in 1837. The annual Every Member Pledge campaign is your opportunity to think about what you can do to support UUCH during the year 2021. Pledges made during this time are for the coming year, anytime within the coming year, 2021. Our goal is to have 100% participation, knowing that some may only be able to pledge a nominal amount. Canvassers have been in contact with most of the members and friends by now, and if you haven't been contacted, please contact Margaret Galbraith, and the information is in the order of service again. Encourage you to stay in touch. Every Thursday evening at 7 p.m. we're hosting an online gathering to allow us to break out of isolation. The link for that gathering, again, is in the order of service. The annual Christmas Hamper Drive is not happening this year with Canadian Mental Health Association, and instead we're going to put a little bit of some extra Christmas goodies into the brunch bags that we distribute from the church here every Saturday morning. So next Saturday we'll have some special gifts for our neighbors. And we've received a wonderful response to an appeal last week to help fund some special Christmas goodies for those who come to our takeout lunch service. The generosity of those who were able to contribute is very greatly appreciated. Thank you so much. Now, coming up, our 8th annual Blue Christmas service, and things are happening so fast, they're changing as I speak. We have approval from the Department of Health to do it live from Bearley's House of the Blues, provided we only have 5 people present, but we get all the ambiance of the House of the Blues and ribs, and we have a top-tier top-tier musician, Renee Smith. And we'll be streaming the service live from the stage of Bearley's House of the Blues on YouTube and on Facebook. We'll be sending out an electronic poster over UU Info shortly, and I hope you'll share it widely on whatever social platforms you're using. And now, Jessica selected an appropriate seasonal piece of music for our prelude. Relax and enjoy. At this point in our service, we pause to acknowledge the history of our relationship with the Indigenous peoples of this land, the Mi'kmaq. This morning, Margaret Galbraith, a member of our Truth, Healing, and Reconciliation team, will speak to us. Margaret?
Good morning. I'm a member of the Truth, Healing, and Reconciliation group, as Norm said, and I would like to share with you what I learned at a session I took run by the CUC at the CUC national meetings in about a month ago. It was led by an Anishinaabe Indigenous person. His name is Stephen Paquette, and he was talking about what Indigenous people do for opening words, which is not a land acknowledgement. What they do is they initially introduce themselves, talking about their relationship with their various ancestors, and then they thank the Creator for all of life and the whole range from the sky, the earth, the plants, the animals to which they are all related. And then they would do a smudging ceremony in order that they could use their hands in a good way that day. They could use their eyes a good way that day, their ears, as they did the whole smudging ceremony. And Stephen actually said that when they're meeting as a group, each person does their own introductions. So he says it can take quite a long time to get through the opening words for your average group. However, I am a first generation immigrant to this country, and I don't feel it appropriate to use the Indigenous methods of opening a ceremony, so I will give our land acknowledgement as we have been doing, that we are meeting today on the unceded territory of the Mi'kma'ki, and that we are all treaty people.
Thank you, Margaret. And now, Leah Wolliver will read our chalice lighting words, and following that, I'll light the chalice here in our sanctuary.
Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence, the silence that soothes and comforts the wounded, the silence that yields insights into heart and soul, the silence that calms, the silence that listens, the silence that speaks, the silence that renews. Let this be a place of warm and gentle silence.
The door to our sanctuary is only one door into the temple, and our opening hymn reminds us of that.
For our opening hymn, we will be singing Our Faith is But a Single Gem, number 193. So please turn to, well, not the hymnals, the words will be up on the screen.
And now Marie Claude has a story for children of all ages that reminds us to pay attention to the love that's all around us.
Good morning, everyone. This morning, I'm going to share the story, Did You Find Any Pieces Today? By Douglas Taylor. It starts with Mordecai, and when he was a child, his favorite thing was when his grandmother would visit and tell him stories at bedtime. They lived nearby, so he was able to get a bedtime story from her at least once a week. He loved to hear her stories, and his favorite was a story about the shattered vessels. My favorite as well, she would always say. And then she would tell him, there are many versions of how the world came to be, but to me, the best one is Tikkun Olam from the Kabbalah, because we get to take part. At the beginning, there was love, and there was so much love, it filled 10 large vessels. Those vessels were sent to the world, but the love was so powerful and so much that it could not be contained by the vessels. The love burst the vessels, it shattered them. The love broke into many pieces and was scattered all over creation, all over the world. And it's our job to find all the pieces, Mordecai would say. His grandmother would smile and nod. Yes, Mordecai, that is our part in creation. We need to gather all the scattered pieces and bring them back together to repair the world. And then she would lean closer to him and ask, and did you find any pieces today? Mordecai always had an answer for her. When he was 5, there was always a sparkly rock or a beautiful sunset he would mention. On this day, he said, I found a very pretty feather today. A feather? She would ask, impressed. Tell me about it. And he would. One time he asked, Grandmother, I have figured this out, right? It's like a big hide and seek game, and I need to find all the bright and beautiful pieces and collect them. His grandmother would smile down at him adoringly. Maybe, she would say with a shrug. It is a mystery. We tell the story and we ask our questions. It's good. That was when he was 5. Later, when Mordecai was 12, he had found a different answer. He still loved that story. Still asked for that one as often as any other story each week. Grandmother would tell him about the love in the shattering vessels and the scattering of the pieces. And she would ask, did you find any pieces today? As a mature 12-year-old, he was proud to tell her, I have figured it out, Grandmother. I used to think the pieces were pretty things, like glitter that had exploded all over everything. But now I know it's not about finding shiny rocks. It's about love. Isn't that right, Grandmother? Love? She asked, smiling at him. Maybe, he would say and shrug. It's a mystery. We tell the story and we ask her questions. It's good. And then she asked, tell me more about the love you found this week. And he would. He would tell her about how he loved his parents and how he loved her and grandfather, and on and on. Later, when Mordecai was in high school, Grandmother would still come over sometimes, and they would talk. Sometimes he would ask her to tell the story of Tikkun Olam, even though he was too old for bedtime stories. She would tell him and she would ask, did you find any pieces today? And Mordecai would tell her about kindness he had given or received, about a girl who helped him figure out the answer to a homework problem, or the time he helped a stranger who had fallen in the grocery store. He said, I think it's silly that I used to think the pieces of God's love were shiny rocks, and it's embarrassing that I thought it was about something as mushy as love. It must be about kindness. Do I have it right this time, Grandmother? And she would smile and shrug. Maybe. Tell me more about the kindness that you found this week. The years went on, and Mordecai grew older. He fell in love and got married. He asked his grandmother to tell his favorite story at the wedding, which everyone loved. A few years after that, when he was in his late 20s, his grandmother grew ill and went to the nursing home. He visited her every week, and she would ask him to tell her stories. He did. He would tell her his favorite story about Tikkun Olam, repairing the world. She would ask him, "Did you find any pieces today?" One day, when she asked that of him, he was quiet for a while, thinking. She said, "Grandmother, I think I finally get it. The pieces are not just beautiful, shiny things, but they're not love or kindness either. It's all of it. All of it together. Isn't that right?" She smiled up at him adoringly and shrugged. Maybe. It is a mystery. We tell the story and we ask her questions. It is good. And so, his life went on. He had a career helping people in his way. He and his spouse had a child together. Tell the story. And each day, he would find a few pieces. He would look for beauty and show it to others. He would make his life and the lives of other people around him better. He would repair the world. So, like Mordecai and his grandmother, when you reflect in stillness, consider.
Thank you, Marie-Claude. I hope we all find some pieces today, maybe even in this service. We take this special time now to reflect on our joys and sorrows. It's a sacred time in the service, a time that we set apart to honor the many joys and the many sorrows that you, this congregation, are living, and to acknowledge the mutual support of our community. Jessica will help me this morning in lighting some candles. I'll ask her to light one candle for all the joys that are in the room, the big joys that come along only frequently, and the little joys that we are blessed with every day, if we can but see them. And Jessica will light a second candle, again for the members and friends of our community who are shut in long-term care homes. A candle for John Patterson, Marie Davis, Irisha Cox, Ann Wood, Norm Sabowitz, and Dr. Philip Welsh. And I asked Jessica to light another candle for all those who are here with us or in our thoughts, who are struggling mentally, physically, financially. Each week I invite anyone with a joy or a sorrow to share at this time to relay their thoughts to me by email. Sandra Clark was a longtime member and a very engaged member of the congregation. And she died 1 year ago on this date, December the 13th. Sandra and Alan were married for 51 years, and they have 3 daughters and 6 grandchildren. This week I received this note from Alan Clark. Sunday is the anniversary of Sandra's death. Can you light a candle in support of her grieving family? And we have done that. And then I wanted to light a candle for my youngest daughter, Kayla, and her husband, Andy, and their baby girl, Millie Louise. They're flying to Milwaukee, Wisconsin on Tuesday of next week to begin life in the United States, where Andy has been transferred. And it's not the ideal time to be moving to the USA. But they're smart, and they know they'll be careful. The reflective hymn this morning is number 352, Find a Stillness, presented by Jessica Friesen.
Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. Find a stillness, hold a stillness, let the stillness carry me. essence carry me in the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power. I will find true harmony. Seek the essence. Seek the essence, hold the essence, let the essence carry me. Let me flower, help me flower, watch me flower, carry me. In the Spirit, by the Spirit, with the Spirit giving power, I will find true harmony.
Our reading this morning is When the Going Gets Tough by Katrina Kennison. You can read more of her writing at katrinakennison.com. And she is a writer, not a minister, so she has several books that sound pretty interesting. When the going gets tough, may I resist my first impulse to wade in, explain, resolve, and restore. May I sit down instead. When the going gets tough, may I be quiet. May I steep for a while in stillness. When the going gets tough, may I have the faith that things are unfolding as they are meant to. May I remember that my life is what it is, not what I ask for. May I find the strength to bear it, the grace to accept it, the faith to embrace it. When the going gets tough, may I practice with what I'm given, rather than wish for something else. When the going gets tough, may I assume nothing. May I not take it personally. May I opt for trust over doubt, compassion over suspicion, vulnerability over vengeance. When the going gets tough, may I open my heart before my mouth. When the going gets tough, may I be the first to apologize. May I leave it at that. May I bend with all my being toward forgiveness. When the going gets tough, may I look for a door to step behind rather than a wall to hide behind. When the going gets tough, may I turn my gaze up to the sky above my head rather than down to the mess at my feet. May I count my blessings. When the going gets tough, may I pause, reach out a hand, and make the way easier for someone else. When the going gets tough, may I remember that I'm not alone. May I be kind. When the going gets tough, may I choose love over fear every time.
Thank you, Marilyn. That poem that Marilyn just read as I was listening sounds like a prayer. And it contains some counterintuitive advice. When the going gets tough, may I be quiet. May I steep for a while in stillness. Our instincts tell us that when the going gets tough, we need to take action. But Katrina Kennison is pointing out that it would be better to sit in silence with our defenses lowered, listening for truths that we may not want to hear. Truths that may tell us may help us to choose the best path out of our predicament. And this I love. When the going gets tough, may I open my heart before my mouth. I've recently been reading and thinking about issues related to dismantling racism and building spiritual community. And in both of these cases, I've been reminded of the need for silence before we jump in to respond to something that's been said. I've never heard it put so succinctly. Open our hearts before we open our mouths. And finally, a phrase that caught my attention related to my subject matter this morning. When the going gets tough, may I look for a door to step through rather than a wall to hide behind. When the going gets tough, we're wise to seek out sanctuary, a place of calm and serenity to gather our thoughts before we react to the situation. It may be a literal sanctuary, like the space that I'm speaking from this morning, or a metaphorical sanctuary. But we enter through a door, either literal or metaphorical. The door to our metaphorical sanctuary might be a walk in the forest, a time beside the ocean. It may be literature or music or arts or the company of a pet, or meditation or love or grandchildren. We may be confronted with what appears to be an impenetrable wall. I'm thinking about the profound grief that we suffer at the death of a loved one. We're trapped behind a wall of grief. But as we heard in the reading this morning, if we search, we may find a doorway to step through into the sanctuary of acceptance and peace. My thoughts today were inspired by Mary Oliver's poem, Today. She wrote, "Today I'm flying low and not saying a word. I'm letting all the voodoos of ambition sleep. The world goes on as it must, the bees in the garden rumbling a little, the fish leaping, the gnats getting eaten, and so forth. But I'm taking the day off. Quiet as a feather, I hardly move, though really I'm traveling a terrific distance. Stillness is one of the doors into the temple." The doors into the temple may be literal or metaphorical in the same way that Mary Oliver describes silence. That poem sent me down a Google rabbit hole looking for doors to temples. And here are a few. Do you recognize this last door? It is, of course, the front door to our church at 5500 English Street. It's a very simple, plain door. But you should notice the accessibility button. We can be proud of that. But otherwise, it lacks something in comparison to the other doors, don't you think? I don't want a gold-plated or even a bronze door, but I think we could do something to make our entrance look more significant, a better reflection of the idea of a sacred sanctuary behind the door. I'm thinking about inviting our group of friends of 5500 Street to imagine an upgrade for our door. Maybe just paint it red. Of course, there is another door that all sanctuaries must have. If you don't recognize this, it's the back door to our church. It's a door where you can slip in anonymously without drawing any attention. And now we have a new door into the temple. Maybe a door that will revolutionize the idea of temple and sanctuary. The technological virtual door. The door that you entered the temple with today. What's behind all those doors? And what is it that goes on in the temple, in the sanctuary? Monica Jacobson Kennison addressed that in a poem. What is it that calls you here? What is it that calls you onward, that calls you inward, that leads you homeward? What is it that gives you the power to make that change, to ask that question, to take that journey? What is it that says you have done well, that asks you to learn more, that brings you to stillness, that holds you up in hard times? It is relationship, the beating heart of our faith. It begins when we share this hour, our truths, this air, and our hearts. Here ends the poem. Spirituality lies at the heart of what goes on inside the temple or sanctuary, or meeting space, if you prefer. I think we all need to remind us about how special our sanctuaries are. I came across this quote from the 1936 Unitarians Face a New Age, the report of the Commission on Appraisal for the Unitarian Association in 1936. Worship is a deliberate effort to strengthen the individual's grasp on the highest spiritual values of which they are aware. Where else do you do such sacred work except in a sanctuary? Our UU Wellspring group is reading from a book, Everyday Spiritual Practice, edited by Scott W. Alexander. His opening paragraph reads, "It was the Greek philosopher Plato, born in 428 BC, who said, 'The life which is unexamined is not worth living.' Many people in our culture seem caught in a rut, meandering through their days, doing what comes easily and simply, reacting to unpredictable twists and turns, failing to structure their lives in any meaningful or maturing ways." I'll read that last sentence again. Many people in our culture seem caught in a rut, meandering through their days, doing what comes simply, reacting to unpredictable twists and turns, failing to structure their lives in any meaningful, maturing ways. The ability to structure our lives in a meaningful way assumes that we've made a decision to give meaning to our lives. Or if you prefer, to make meaning out of the existence in this amazing universe. If you can't find meaning in your life, then you are inevitably going to meander through your days, doing what comes easily and reacting to unpredictable twists and turns. Spirituality is nothing less than the capacity to connect with the world around you in a way that helps you to make meaning out of your existence. Scott Alexander says it's the capacity inside you to experience wonder, mystery, and awe, and a feeling of connection. Whether that connection is to the universe, to nature, to other people, to all living things, or to whatever is behind it all. We can develop our own spirituality in myriad ways. There are many doors into the temple. The book we're reading, Everyday Spiritual Practice, contains 38 different essays, each one describing a different spiritual practice, a different door into the temple. The practices are grouped into 6 categories. The basics, engaging the mind or contemplation, engaging the body, activity and nourishment, engaging the heart, relationships, engaging the will, right action and social justice, and engaging the soul, creativity. I'll close with some thoughts I've been learning about creating a diverse and a welcoming religious community. And it comes down to that phrase from the reading that Marilyn read for us. Open your heart before you open your mouth. We can easily destroy the sense of sanctuary when we speak before we open our hearts. First, consider this. When you're listening to another person, are you opening your heart, or are you preparing a counter-argument or your own story that you want to share as soon as that person stops speaking? Listening, opening your heart to the experience of another human being, is an act of spirituality. In particular, if you're listening to someone with a different life experience than you've had, you're called on to open your heart, to imagine what that other person's experience is like, and to validate the other's truth, even when it conflicts with your own experience. Listen with an open heart and allow the words and the emotion expressed to penetrate your heart before you offer your opinion. In fact, your heartfelt silence is a greater gift to the speaker and the community than your unsolicited opinions. And that is so difficult for many of us, to sit in silence after we've heard another speak. The Indian mystic Paramahansa Yogananda wrote, "In the devotee's silence, God's silence ceases." And Richard Rohr has said, "In contemplation, we can hold conflicting thoughts comfortably. Either or thinking is the opposite of contemplative stillness." Here ends the quote. It is that either or thinking that leads to confrontation. And our youth congregation should become a place where we can listen with an open heart and not feel compelled to wade in, to fix, to explain, to resolve, or to restore. When we challenge another person's perspective, we challenge their self-worth. And many of the people who come through the door of our sanctuary have already been beaten down by the challenges to their self-worth by people of privilege and power. Open your heart before you open your mouth. Good advice. And be aware that what we think we say and what other people hear can be very different. To understand what other people are hearing, you have to have an understanding of what that other person has experienced in life. And that's not usually the case. And even then, the intention with which you speak and the impact of what you say may be different. And we have to learn to take responsibility not only for our intentions, but also for the impact of our words and our actions on others. Particularly on others who have been pushed to the margins of our society due to a socioeconomic status, mental health, physical limitations, culture, or color of skin. If I were building a Unitarian Universalist temple, there would be many doors. People would be arriving from various faith traditions and life experience, and they could choose the door that made them most comfortable to enter. But once inside, there would be lots of space to sit quietly in conversation, lots of time to listen, lots of time to open one's heart. And there would only be one exit door, symbolic of our goal to bridge differences and to build loving community. May it be so. Amen. And now Jessica has some seasonal music. and music can certainly be a door into the temple.
Even though this is a seasonal piece, I just want to acknowledge Hanukkah. We have the menorah right here, and even though I don't have candles, I promise I will get some for next Sunday. So in the bleak midwinter, it's number 241, but most people know the words, so sing along with me if you want. In the bleak midwinter, frosty wind made moan, earth stood hard as iron, water like a stone. Snow had fallen, snow on snow, snow on snow. In the bleak midwinter, long ago. Christ, a homeless stranger, so the gospel say, cradled in a manger and a bed of hay. In the bleak midwinter, stable place sufficed Mary and her baby, Jesus Christ. Once more child and mother weave their magic spell, touching hearts with wonder, words can never tell. In the bleak midwinter, in this world of pain, where our hearts are open, love is born again. When our hearts are open, love is born again.
Thank you, Jessica. Beautiful. This is the time in the service where in pre-COVID times we would pass the collection plate. Instead, this morning I have this message from the board of the church. The UUCH community has been so loving and generous during this strange and unsettled year. Many thanks to all those who have kept our financial house in good order. Your giving is so appreciated, and we have continued to pay our staff, offer our Saturday brunch and bag lunch, stock our food bank, and thanks to your generosity. Going forward, we know we can continue to count on you. If you'd like to make a donation at this time, you can do so by e-transfer to treasurer@uuch.ca. Or if you prefer, you can always mail a check to the church address. This message with gratitude from your board of directors. And now to Jessica for a closing hymn.
Before I play the closing hymn, I would appreciate if all of you could contact me somehow. Tell me your favorite Christmas song, something so meaningful to you, and on December 20th, I will put it into a medley, a Christmas medley. So I've already had some emails, so please continue sending your songs. Wake now my senses and hear the earth call. Feel the deep power of being in awe. Keep with the out to the new. Join with each pilgrim whose quest for the true. Honor the beauty and wisdom of time. Persevere thy limit and praise the sublime. Wake now, compassion. Wake now, compassion. Give heed to the cry. Voices of suffering fill the white sky. Take as your neighbor, both stranger and friend, praying and striving their hardship to end.
Thank you again, Jessica. The closing words are the last lines of a poem by Reverend Sandra Fees. May the presence of the holy crowd out fear, hate, and worry, and proclaim in this moment that peace and goodwill might yet be breathed into the world, and avow that we too can give birth to love wherever we go, whoever we are. May it be so. Amen. Thank you all who attended the service today by Zoom or by YouTube. I'll say goodbye now to those who joined us by YouTube as we end our live streaming. Thank you again, and go in peace. Those who are on Zoom will be rejoining in a moment, and we're open for discussion.